Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kristen visits Wendy while digging into Lee's murder, and Everett's behavior confounds Stephanie as Roman hangs a help wanted sign in the cantina window. Harris approaches. He's hoping Roman will change his mind about letting Ava stay there with him. Roman agrees to it, but only if it's temporary. At their apartment, Ava makes coffee for Wendy and Trip. She offers to make breakfast since she's staying longer than anticipated. Through forced teeth, Wendy plays nice about her staying. Ava sets the table for breakfast, but Trip and Wendy have plans to meet Stephanie. After Ava leaves to apartment quest, Trip thanks Wendy for being cool about his mama. Wendy says she understands, but decides to stay home from meeting Stephanie. In the Demera manse, Kristen and Stefan bandy their plan to prove that Gabby didn't kill Lee, and put Kristen in charge of Demera Enterprises. Kristen prodigies who want Lee dead. Though he did, Stefan didn't kill him, and his PI'scan't figure it out, so how is Kristen going to? Kristen calls herself a shark, however, she smell it far down, if there's one little drop of blood in the water. Further cast added to suit LA. In his Salem room, Everett sips brown liquor and studies Robert Stein's hand on the divorce papers. He shifts in as president, and his expression darkens. He throws the papers to the ground. Outside the cantina, Stephanie tells Jada that Everett inked the divorce papers as Robert Stein. Jada celebrates as Everett saunters up. "Hey," he coolly says to Jada. "Good to see you." He offers Stephanie a dismissive "hey" and IMS on Jada. When he tells her he's getting coffee, Jada predicts his order. "You flash back," he says, pleased. Jada asks for the divorce papers. He says he'll get them to her and strolls into the cantina. Confused, Stephanie questions Everett's jest. To Jada, who can only concentrate on the fact that he inked the papers. Trip arrives, egging Jada to go meet Rafe. Further, who should replace Katy Perry on American Idol? When Harris meets Ava in the square, he tells her she can stay with him until she finds her own place. They decide eat at the bistro so they can search for Clyde's book. Stefan comes to their open bistro, where Rafe waits at a table for Jada. Rafe warns Stefan to keep his nose clean because if he screws up again, he'll be staying for him. Latterly, Harris and Ava enter and sputter with Rafe as Jada arrives. As the couples make small talk, the content of Jada moving into Rafe's house comes up. Ava snidely comments about how much she'll love living there, but warns her about the tricky cook stove. Further than one explanation for Everett's strange jest. When Harris and Ava sit at another table, Harris asks his gal not to push Jada's buttons. Ava defensively retorts that Jada doesn't suppose she's good enough for him. Harris knows she's perfect for him, and that's all that matters. In fact, with Jada moving out, perhaps Ava could move into her room above the cantina. In the cantina, Everett sits in front of his laptop, wondering what he should write about. Maybe a story about Officer Goldman Bobby. By day, crook by night, living two separate lives. He decides to write a air piece about Smith Island rather. As he types a caption, and his Everett Lynch byline, he pauses. His expression softens. Further, how Tamara Braun picked her Emmy nomination role. Stephanie and Trip enter the cantina. Everett swells and says it's good to see them. Stephanie says she just saw him outdoors. Right, he says. He asks Trip if he and Wendy would be over for a composition about their experience. Trip declines. Stephanie glares at Everett as she sits at a table with her family. Kristen comes to see Wendy at her apartment. She's been talking to Way about business and knows he's agonized about Lee. Which is why she's there. Kristen suggests they set up an education at Salem U in Lee's honor. While generous, Wendy wonders why she'd do that. Kristen says it's the least the company can do, considering their long-standing relationship with Way. Wendy thinks her parents would appreciate that. Kristen sits, making herself comfortable. Mind if I take a seat? Further, is this notorious couple heading to DWTS? At the cantina, Tripp expresses his concern for Wendy, who's not relatively herself. Stephanie is upset about him. Tripp admits he's floundering after the fire in the beer tank as well. But he's more upset about Wendy, who feels shamefaced about being down from her parents. Stephanie suggests they take a serious break from Salem for a while. As Harris and Ava eat at the bistro, Harris gets up to covertly hunt. Stefan approaches Ava, who tells him the grouse or galettes are dry. Across the room, Rafe eyes them. Jada excitedly tells her beau that Bobby eventually inked the divorce papers. She can't stay to file them and get that creep out of her life for good. Further, why Lindsay Godfrey submitted for Emmys again after 5 times at Wendy's apartment, Kristen asks if it's hard living where Lee was killed. An emotional Wendy recounts that he actually failed at the sanitarium. Kristen notes Lee no way got justice. Wendy reminds her that Gabby is still in captivity. She recalls chancing Gabby leaning over Lee's body with a knife, however, who killed him? Kristen pretends she's late for commodity and leaves, if not her. Wendy double cinches the door behind her and cries. When Tripp comes home, Wendy has to loose the cinch on the door to let him in. After talking with her father, she tells Tripp she no way heard him cry growing up, but now he's crying all the time. Her mama, too. Tripp holds up his phone to show her the tickets to Hong Kong he bought for them. This means the world to Wendy. You mean the world to me, Tripp responds. Further, Christian Alfonso's hope return for Doug's honorary. As Stephanie gets up to leave the cantina, she confronts Everett about his change in jest. He suggests he was just distracted before and leaves. Stephanie gapes. At the DiMera manse, Kristen addresses with Way on the phone. She tells him of the education she and Wendy plan to recognize Lee's heritage. Further, is Gabby eventually returning? After unsuccessfully searching the public areas of the bistro, Harris and Ava conclude breaking in to more completely hunt is their only option. When Everett returns to his Salem room, Jada and Rafe knock on his door. They want the divorce papers. With a cool, unbothered address, Everett looks Jada over and hands them over. Jada checks for the hand and says she'll have them filed right down. After they leave, Everett looks at his and Jada's engagement print on his phone. He gapes off with a menacing expression. Stephanie's bomb, Kristen and Stefan investigate, Rafe's trouble, Tripp's gift days of our lives spoilers for Wednesday, April 24, 2024 are in. Stephanie Johnson, Abigail Klein, has a stunner for Jada Hunter, Elia Cantu. Kristen DiMera, Stacey Hayduke, and Stefan DiMera, Brandon Barish, try to figure out who really killed Lee Shin, Remington Hoffman. Tripp Johnson, Lucas Adams, has a surprise for Wendy Shin, Victoria Grace, also, Rafe Hernandez, Galen Gehring, has a stern warning for Stefan. Stephanie Johnson's Intel DOL spoilers for Wednesday, April 24 reveal that Stephanie will have some jaw-dropping news for Jada. Suckers recall that Rafe pushed Everett Lynch, Blake Barris, to eventually subscribe the divorce papers. Jada and Stephanie presumably have yet another face-off. Under normal circumstances, Stephanie would let Jada learn the news on her own. Still, Jada presumably hurls some further allegations at Stephanie. So, that will lead to Stephanie telling Jada that the divorce papers are inked, so she can eventually move on. Still, did Everett subscribe them as Robert Bobby Stein or the name he's presently using? Everett had such a hissy about this, that the divorce plot can't be answered this snappily. Perhaps Everett inked them, but Bobby didn't. While Salem knows they're the bone. And same, a judge might see it else. DOL spoilers Rafe Hernandez's trouble on Wednesday, April 24, Rafe will make another appearance. Last time, Rafe was hanging Everett so Jada could get her divorce over with. This time, the warning will be to Stefan, who just got out of jail, thanks to Sloan Peterson Brady, Jessica Surfety. Now that Stefan is out of jail,